Hey, gang, this week's episode is brought to you by Royal Retros, the king of throwbacks. Hey, if you're looking for teams and leagues that don't exist anymore, but you'd like to remember them in high-quality jersey or uniform format, hey, some of those teams were legendary, some of them were disasters, but they all live at Royal Retros. Check them out. RoyalRetros.com. Use that promo code SEATS for 10% off all of your purchases. Check them out now. And now, check out this episode.
The Chicago Sting and the New York Cosmos just moments away from the start of Soccer Bowl 81, and there are a couple of extraordinarily intriguing matchups in this game today. For Chicago, the high-scoring Karl-Heinz Granitza will be marked by young American Jeff Durgan, and Giorgio Canaglia, the highest-scoring player in the league, will be marked by Franz Mathieu. I had a chance to chat with each of those four men about these matchups, and I asked Karl-Heinz Granitza how he would beat Jeff Durgan.
Just help from the other teammates from my team. That is enough. I cannot beat him all the times, one against one. I need help from other players from our team.
Does he have a weakness, though, that you can exploit that you've discovered in your previous encounters?
Yeah, maybe everybody expect Granitza have just a left foot or just a free kick. I can score him with the head ball. I can score him with the right foot. Maybe I try this today.
We might see you going to the right then, huh?
Today I going maybe more times to the right than everybody expects.
Good luck, Carl.
Thank you. It's very nice.
Welcome to Good Seats Still Available, a curious little podcast devoted to exploring what used to be in professional sports. Here's your host, Tim Hanlon.
Hey now, how you doing, everybody? It's Tim Hanlon, your pal, your confidant, your doctor of defunct, and all things forgotten sports. It's Good Seats Still Available, the curious little podcast that is devoted to what used to be in professional sports. Thank you for finding us, and we've dialed up hopefully a fun one for you this week, especially if you, like me, still are, maybe, right, in memory, a fan of the original North American Soccer League. And Lord knows we've had a lot of different conversations and discussions, but the more we get to talk to people who are actually in the moment during the course of this league's existence, the more excited we get. And we could not be more excited this week than to bring you a wonderful conversation with the great Karl-Heinz Granitza. And if you're a Chicago Sting fan, or frankly, even of the old NASL generally, you will remember that Karl-Heinz Granitza was perhaps maybe a step behind the scoring prowess of Giorgio Canaglia of the Cosmos. Now, I say that as a Cosmos fan, and Karl-Heinz knows that I'm winking when I say that. But I think arguably that Canaglia and Karl-Heinz Granitza were the hub and spoke, if you will, of the NASL for a number of years. These two guys were the quintessential snipers in this game. They were the highest scorers in the league. They led their teams in respective scoring and assists and all that kind of stuff. But Karl-Heinz Granitza, I think, is arguably, not so arguably, synonymous with the Chicago Sting. And that's kind of the setup and the conversation for this week. We've had a number of great conversations about the Sting, both directly and indirectly, with folks like Mike Conklin, who covered the team for the Chicago Tribune back in the day. Willy Roy, the great coach, who led them to all kinds of glory, including both the 1981 and 1984 NASL Soccer Bowls. We'll talk about those in our conversation with Karl-Heinz. Doug Verb, Clive Toy, Charlie Evranian. These are all conversations. If you haven't heard these or those before, check them out. That will give you a much fuller picture of the Chicago Sting story. But a whole bunch still remains to be remembered and dug into. And Karl-Heinz has come through with flying colors, and I think you will love this conversation as much as I did. Live from Pottsdam in Germany, we had a two-part conversation with Karl-Heinz, and we give it to you largely without much editorial stuff. We'll throw us a couple of fun little clips in there to sort of keep you awake and focused. But that clip, the first one at the top of the show here, comes to you from a much derided broadcast of the 1981 Soccer Bowl, where the Chicago Sting won over the mighty Cosmos, 1-0. Actually, it was a 0-0 tie, and it was a 2-1 shootout victory by the Sting. Regardless of the craziness of how those ties got broken in the old NASL back in the day, that made the Chicago Sting the victors for that season. Yours truly was at that game at Exhibition Stadium in Toronto. I did not get to watch that broadcast. And a lot of people kind of didn't either. This, as you may remember, was part of the 3-year-long ABC sports contract with the NASL, which began in 1979. ABC saw this hype and fervor and all these sold-out stadiums in places like Giant Stadium and in East Rutherford, New Jersey, and Tampa Bay, and all kinds of places in Minnesota, and on and on. So national television, of course, was sort of next on the docket. 79 is a bunch of games on the weekends. You could see those. Same in 1980. They covered both soccer bowls. But by the end of both of those years, and I'm not sure it was entirely the NASL's fault. It's probably more scheduling on ABC's part. They were very sporadic. These games were largely on Sunday afternoons in the middle of the summer when viewing was very low, and they were very irregularly scheduled. But for whatever reasons, ABC soured on this contract. And by the third year, the 1981 season, ABC was having nothing of the regular season or the playoffs, and they were just basically going to skate by with the bare minimum of just covering and delivering the 1981 championship game, the Soccer Bowl. The good news was that it was the top two teams in the league at that year, Chicago Sting and the New York Cosmos, and of course, a rivalry for sure. We're going to talk about that with Karl-Heinz. If any team had the Cosmos number over the decades or the life of the NASL, it was the Chicago Sting. And we're talking about some crazy games that Karl-Heinz was part of and instrumental in against these vaunted Cosmos. But back to the broadcast, it was decided that this game was going to be on Saturday night in Exhibition Stadium in Toronto. It was originally going to be scheduled for that Sunday afternoon. I think it was. I want to say it was the date of the game was September 26, 1981. That was a Saturday. That Sunday was the originally scheduled date for the window for broadcasting the game live on ABC. For whatever reasons, research tells me that there was a CFL Toronto Argonauts game in Exhibition Stadium scheduled for that Sunday. Thus, the need to play this game on Saturday night. ABC wasn't going to interrupt its Saturday night schedule with the Love Boat and Fantasy Island and all that kind of stuff. But people were upset. People in New York were hugely upset. They didn't get to see the game, luckily for them, I guess, until 12:30 in the afternoon on tape delay on Sunday on Channel 7, the ABC affiliate there, or O&O station, as did the rest of the country at that time. Chicago, however, WLS was able to maneuver to get the game only with a 2-hour delay that Saturday night. So roughly 10 p.m. or so, Chicago time, that game was available essentially on a 2-hour delay on Channel 7 there. And lucky for them, because the Sting obviously had a momentous game that will now go down in the history books of anybody who lives in Chicago, sports fans. Even if they weren't around at the time, they probably know from their parents or grandparents that this thing called the Chicago Sting was quite the phenomenon for a short period of time in the early 1980s in particular, the late 70s too. In 1981, probably the pinnacle, although 84 they won a championship as well. But in 1981, the city shut down when they came back. The crowds were large at O'Hare Airport when they flew back, and there was a ticker tape parade. And a lot of people still remember, including our guest this week, Karl-Heinz Granitza. Now, he's an amazing character, a bit of a controversial figure in Chicago and amongst Sting fans, not unlike Giorgio Canaglia was with the Cosmos, but undeniably a great player in the NASL, great player prior to, but also indoors, both with the NASL and the MISL, and even the AISA, if you remember, the Chicago Power. We'll talk about that too. So many things to get to with Karl-Heinz. Soccer Made in Germany makes an appearance. We talk about some of his teammates like Potomar Hedek, lots of community service kinds of things involved here. His love of Chicago, and in many respects, the memory that still lives on of his play and contributions to pro soccer here in the United States. He's a U.S. Soccer Hall of Famer as well, of course. And let's waste no more time. Let's get right to our wonderful conversation with the great, the legendary, the Hall of Famer. Here he is, Karl-Heinz Granitza. Sit back, Chicago Sting fans. This one's for you. As always, please enjoy. So let's start a little bit in the beginning. How did you even? Obviously, you were a professional player in Germany. I'd love to hear a little bit of what your professional life was like. Maybe even a little bit of your upbringing in Germany, and obviously leading into how does this Chicago Sting and North American Soccer League thing even hit your radar? Like, how do you even know about this back in the 70s?
My lifestyle was there was already a dream came true. I was a son from a coal miner. My father was a coal miner, and my wife's father was also a coal miner, and we lived very, very poor in a poor neighborhood in Germany. And my attention was to be one day a professional soccer player. But I came a little bit late in the German Bundesliga, and then finally somebody connecting me, and that was Willy Roy connecting me, our coach from Chicago Sting, connecting me and say, please come over to United States just for 3 months and take a look about it. You find out you like the league or you don't like the league, or find out for ourselves. And I think obviously that's nobody speaking about it in Chicago and in United States before. I know that our owner Lee Stern was very, very, very close before I came. Was very, very close to sell the club for very, very cheap money. You know, he was fed up about losing. He was fed up about the players. He was fed up about the whole organization, about the Chicago Sting. And finally, somebody came over and turned it around with Willy Roy together as a coach.
All right, so this is around, I guess, 1977, 1978. So before this, right, you're working your way up in the German Bundesliga, the German Bundesliga, and the leagues underneath it, right? You were kind of a big deal at Hertha, right? Playing and scoring a lot of goals, right?
Yes. I was under the first 3 goal scorers, and not only in goals, but I was like a center forward to give a lot of assists. And used to be in Germany, there was not counting. You know, the United States is always in front of so many statistics and many ideas about new ways in football, in any sports organization. And I was a leading goal scorer. My dream came true. I was first in the second league. I scored the most goals in the second league in Germany. And then I got 10 offers from 10 different clubs in Germany. And finally, I decided through my ex-coach in the second Bundesliga, Reuschling-Völkling, he said, go to Berlin and you will have a lot of success. And that was the right move to go to Berlin. And you saw the super 1,000 players like Gerd Müller and Franz Beckenbauer and you name it in Germany. And after 6 months, when I moved from the second to the first division team, I was a highlight for Berlin, and very successful in Berlin. Not only goal scoring, assist, and turned the team around. The team was pretty down on the bottom of the league.
That had to be a little frustrating, being a great scorer for a team not doing all that well in the league.
Yes. I was before Hertha BSC was a losing team, and he was the third from the bottom, from the end. And then Karl-Heinz Granitza came over, and through my goals and through the performance, the team is getting better and better and better. But the most of the important part is Karl-Heinz Granitza scored the goals, you know, and then we move up from the third bottom up to almost to the top and win almost. We came very, very close to win the German championship.
And you have to remember that period of time, the Bundesliga was probably, maybe not probably, the top league in the world, really. It certainly was not what the Premier League is today and stuff, and obviously Bundesliga is still one of the strongest, if not we could debate that, but I think not many people would debate back in the 70s, the late 70s in particular, that the Bundesliga was probably the best league in the world.
Yeah, that's correct. You remember 1974, Germany won the World Cup, and in Germany, the development of the players was really sensational. You had so many world-class players. They play after certain kind of time. They went to Spain, they went to Italy, and show the European people what kind of players came from Germany. And you're obviously right about the German Bundesliga was probably to this time very, very close to be stronger than the Premier League to their time in England, stronger than the Italian league, and even stronger than the Spanish league and all the other leagues. Also the German Bundesliga was the top probably in the world.
And the only reason I knew that at the time was, and you probably were not aware of this, but there was very, very limited, literally no soccer on television back in that time here in the United States. And there was, however, this one shining hour that we got on our public television stations called Soccer Made in Germany. A guy named Toby Charles would narrate basically 60-minute condensed versions of these games and stuff. And it was eye-opening because you saw the product in the United States, which was interesting. But then you saw these great players playing on these wonderful games and stuff from abroad on tape delay. And wow, I mean, it was just night and day difference.
Very, very, very true what you're telling me. And even Willy Roy saw me on Soccer Made in Germany, and he's a native. He went from East Germany to this point, used to be Germany. After the Second World War, I think his parents came over to United States and came over to Chicago. And he saw me on Soccer Made in Germany and said, let's try it. We are not getting Gerd Müller, the 1,000 player who scored unbelievable goals. And later on, he went to Fort Lauderdale Strikers. And then finally he came. He paid attention to my name. I was to this point where Chicago Sting and Willy Roy connecting me. I was, I think, on second or third place with goals in the German Bundesliga, and said, let's try it to get this guy. I mean, that was I think that was the reason. Soccer Made in Germany. And what you mentioned, Toby Charles, and that's why Willy Roy paid attention to this person, Karl-Heinz Granitza. Nobody know him before.
I kind of think that's hilarious that he was using Soccer Made in Germany as a recruiting tool for people to come into the league. It's hilarious.
Yes, there was really recruiting, and everybody from the native European people. You watching? I remember in the 70s, you watching a lot of Soccer Made in Germany.
That's unbelievable. All right, well, so and Willy Roy's been on this show a number of years ago and had some great stories and stuff. But let's try. I want to take you to. I want to circle into I guess 1978, right? Because I think it put this in perspective, right? You're playing at Hertha. You're doing really well there, and then 1978. I mean, you don't stop because you have the tail end of the German season, and then you come over to the Sting, and this is what a lot of players did, at least those that wanted to test or dip their toes in the water. And then you went back to Hertha at the end of the NASL season in the summer and basically started again for another season in Germany. So tell me about sort of that process, and maybe what convinced you to trial, I guess, or be on loan, I guess, for that summer, because that seems daunting as a player to nonstop and I have no break whatsoever to spend your summer not resting, but trying this new adventure and then knowing that you're not going to have a break at all.
I think the key person was Willy Roy all the times. You know, he came over. and tell me about what kind of city and what kind of wonderful city Chicago is. And even they have a losing streak right now. They need somebody like me to turn maybe the team and the organization Chicago Sting turn a little bit around through my ambition, to my driving, to my goal scoring, to my leadership, to many things. And he likes to build around my person, maybe a franchise what is recognizable in the United States, maybe all over the world. And finally, that takes more to turn things like around. First of all, I played in Germany. I was very, very happy in Berlin. Berlin is a beautiful city. And then somebody connecting me through Willy Roy and said, can we talk about to going to Chicago, to the Chicago Sting? And then finally, I pay a little bit attention, and they're losing, I think, to this time, 7 in a row or 8 in a row. And Willy and Lee Stern was very, very close, what I heard, and I know so, to sell the club. And then I said, when I go now over and things like this one, and Willy Roy was always pressuring me and tell me about it. Please come over, please come over, please come over. And then finally, I came over on loan basis, and I was pretty tired after the season. When I'm thinking about it, I was pretty tired to go to the Chicago Sting. But through my goal scoring and through my performances in Chicago, the team was getting better and better. And I think Lee Stern gave Willy Roy a free hand to tell him to buying certain kind of players, what makes the team Chicago Sting much better and more exciting. And I was very, 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 very helpful through my idea to how we can play soccer. We like to have an exciting team. We like to have a forward-going team, like what many teams in the world right now, when you think Real Madrid or Manchester United or Bayern Munich, they're playing very, very exciting, the ball up in front. And that was my idea about it. You know?
Sure. But also, too, there was this guy, Malcolm Musgrove, though, right, who was the coach, I guess, at the time of that big losing streak. My understanding was that Musgrove had already begun, maybe with Clive Toy's insistence, to find players out there, and people like Arno Steffenhagen, who became your club mate here in the Sting, and Jorgen Christensen and some other folks that were. It looks like that you were kind of on a short list of people that for a while were in people's sights here in the U.S.
Malcolm Musgrove didn't know my name. Malcolm Musgrove had no idea what kind of player he likes to have. He likes to, Malcolm Musgrove was a coach. He likes to have a totally different player than Karl-Heinz Granitza was. He likes to have somebody like was typical was in England to this time. He likes to have a center forward who was big and strong and heading the ball, every second ball, heading the ball with his head in the net. And I was a totally different player. I was more a playing-making goal scorer. I got a very strong left foot, and I was a player to be staying up in front and holding the ball for the players to be around and make all the other players, the left wing, the right wing. I remember when Willy said, we can get Arno Steffenhagen. I said, buy him right away. He's a world-class player to this time, and he will be very, very helpful for our team. And then in the second game, I remember we played in Detroit, and I was on loan basis. We played in Detroit, and I saw a player what was phenomenal. That was Pato Magedic. And I told Willy Roy about it. I said, spend all the money what you can get from Lee what you have over to get this guy Pato Magedic, and moved like this one, and Willy Roy and myself, and even then our Lee Stern pay attention to this kind of suggestion. What we have to develop a team was probably done after 79. I was always a contender. Chicago's team was always a contender to win a championship in the United States.
So, okay, a couple of questions on that. So, 1978.
Yeah.
How you mentioned Franz Beckenbauer earlier, right? So he came to the Cosmos in 1977. Did you ever talk to him, or were there other folks in the Bundesliga or in your world at that point where? And Pele obviously had made a splash in 1975. That was a big deal here. I'm not sure how much it was a big deal there, but obviously you felt a little bit more confident. I'm wondering what truly pushed you over the edge. Willy Roy, of course, but I mean, there had to be people back home that were going, maybe not a great idea. You know, like what? I'm just curious as to, or did you think that playing in the summer would be the ultimately best way to test this out and not sort of make a jump per se without recourse?
Yeah, first of all, I'm thinking about there's nothing to do with Franz Beckenbauer. Everybody knows Franz Beckenbauer, one of the biggest player ever who played soccer, and Pele played in Cosmos New York. But that was not, for me, I was very, very satisfied to be in Germany, to be one of the three goal scorer, the best three goal scorer, and probably the most assist giver for as center forward. And then I thinking about the United States, and I thought before maybe I going maybe one day to France or to England or to Italy or to a different country, or not to United States. That's why United States was still investing in soccer and develop soccer, and that was very surprisingly that I give United States and Chicago a chance to come over to visit Chicago and making good achievement with Chicago.
Right, make a difference. Not unlike what Clive Toye said to Pelé back in the day. Like, you can go to another club and be a superstar. You can come to the United States and win over a country. And I think there were a lot of players who were going. Well, there's also the paycheck, though, right? I mean, certainly the opportunity to make some extra dollars or extra coin, right? Not a bad idea because your services are wanted elsewhere. But tell me, though, tell me the reality. When you come in the summer of 78, I'm guessing a bit of an overlap between the end of the Hertha schedule and the Sting schedule. You probably didn't. You came somewhat in the middle of the NASL season.
Yes.
What was your if you could remember back?
There was a shock.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
For me was a shock. Very, very shocking. You know, we was one of the best teams in one of the maybe 20 best teams in Europe. Hertha BSC Berlin to this time. I think we reached the number third place after the season in Germany, and we was very, very successful in Germany, you know, the Berlin. And then you're coming over, and then this team under Malcolm Musgrove play kick and rush, you know, the balls, they flying from the defense, every second ball was a long ball up in front, and that was not my type of playing the position as center forward. There was a situation we played in New England the first game. I played the first game, I think, in New England, and Malcolm Musgrove was very, very upset that I took a free kick from 25 yards out, and his philosophy was this ball from 25 yards out from the half position have to be banged in the middle. That's everybody is hitting to a head ball, you know, like the standard situation. And I took the ball from 25 yards, And he was very, very yelling that I have to go up in front in the box from the 16 meters room. And I took the ball, I think the first touch, and hit the ball right in the net. After the game, Malcolm Musgrove, I remember he asked Malcolm Musgrove. He didn't know. Malcolm Musgrove didn't know me, really honestly. He didn't know me. And he has no idea who is Karl-Heinz Granitza. The guy who know a little bit more about it was Willy Roy from the organization Chicago Sting. And he was yelling before that I have to go in the box, and I hit the ball in the net. And after the game, somebody from the newspaper from New England asked him about it. I said, "You got a new center forward. He's a pretty good free kick artist." And then he said, "Yeah, I told him, take the free kick directly and hit the ball in the net, you know." Otherwise, obviously, from his coaching, Malcolm Musgrove was a lie, you know. I was not this kind of center forward what he liked. He likes to have a coach.
That was also indicative of certainly the British or other European kinds of approaches to the game. It was very dour. It was very... and a lot of people, we talked to a lot of players who, in England and Scotland and other places in Europe and stuff who wound up coming over, they just saw this as being a freer place to kind of literally, open stuff up and get out of sort of the boring and dowdy and arguably, kind of still kind of version of the game out in Europe, which was kind of stagnating at that point, really.
Yeah, you're right about it, and we changed it. We changed with my help, with my performance, with my drive, and we changed the Chicago Sting to a very exciting team. Everybody from Europe who saw us. We beat later on Napoli, who won the European Cup. UEFA Cup. We beat the German champion Kaiserslautern. We beat I think another team from Italy to this time, and we beat them. And we played very, very exciting soccer. With a guy like Pato, who was for me a world class player, and Arno Steffen the same with wingers. That was very, very exciting to play with them together. And that's why we were so successful. Obviously, Chicago Sting got a center forward who was not many times injured. I take care of my body all the times. And the driving, the craziness what I have, this unbelievable, this winning attitude. I told us many players from my teammates, this extra yard, this extra shooting, this extra attitude, that was, I think that was the success for Chicago Sting for many years.
Okay, but the shock part, though, tell me, though, about the playing conditions and your take on the various stadiums that you were playing in, the relative lack of fans, or in some cases, some real fans, like in New York, for example. Chicago wasn't always the best attended, best drawing teams.
You're right.
I'm guessing you were playing. So 78, right? Was that Wrigley Field exclusively, or were you sharing stadiums?
Yep.
Yeah. So give me a sense of like that. The travel, that stuff had to be a shock too.
You're right, Tim. We're playing on the baseball field, and you got this from the pictures. This ground. What was not a grass ground, was not a typical soccer stadium, That was one of the shocking parts about me. Then the certain kind of field, AstroTurf field was unbelievable hard. Not like today, what is really soft and in quality in the high range. And then this kick and rush team, what Chicago Sting developed, and the most of the teams in the league. And then more and more teams, players coming over and they playing excellent the ball on the ground. You know, our team, Chicago Sting was probably a team was kick and rush before, and finally we developed through Jürgen Christensen, Arno Steffenhagen, Pato Margedic, we developed a different kind of soccer game, you know. We invented the ball is on the ground, double pass, very exciting. And that's why our attendance in the 70s, I remember this, we played in Wrigley Field. I think we got maybe when we have 2,500 people, that was pretty high. And we developed this for our exciting team and our winning attitude. We developed Chicago Sting to a really exciting team that so many people came over. We developed new American fans. We developed European fans from Italy, from Germany, from Poland, from all over the world, from England, from Scotland, and they came to the Chicago Sting to watch them, to win there, to see a really excellent soccer.
All right, so I want to we'll get into the Sting stuff in a second, but I want to know specifically. So you come to the Sting, you play in the summer, and then you go back to Hertha Berlin for your next Bundesliga season. When and how do you make the determination to make the jump permanently to Chicago Sting? How does that come about?
I have many meetings with Willy Roy together and told him about it. I said, Willy, with this team, when you not spend certain kind of money to develop certain kind of players and better soccer, especially soccer players, then I'm never coming back. That was the reason, and then Willy Roy did pay attention to me, and he know exactly what kind of player I was, and that's why he developed around me, through his excellent coaching, developed a soccer team. For me, was it after the first loan basis, the first 3 months, I told myself, no, I'm not coming back to Chicago Sting. Because
you didn't see the commitment at that point yet.
I didn't see really a commitment from Lee Stern to be. He see this already after the first maybe 5 or 10 games. He see this already. Even there was a losing game before I came, a losing team before I came, and we're making through the last 10 or 15 games. We're making to the last minute. We make the playoff and play the first game in Tampa. I remember this. But Tampa was a good team. Was a very good soccer team, and they got excellent players on the team, Tampa Bay Rowdies. And to this point, you know, I hate to lose. To this point, I said to myself, when Willy Roy can and Lee Stern can promise me to develop this team even with much better players, then I'm never coming back. I got a good team in Germany. I got a good recognition in Germany. I make my point in Germany. And then I was on loan basis. And it takes a lot of talk from Willy Roy to change my mind. I remember.
And when did you make the decision? What point in your Hertha Berlin return for that next season, 78-79, that you made that decision that, okay, I'm going to make the jump? And was there something maybe around, say, Lee Stern, maybe making a commitment more, or some other signs that you saw that things would be a little bit different and a little bit more serious?
I think there was Willy Roy who made this commitment to me and promised me that he will be, as coach, he will be developed the team much better. And Chicago needs you, and you see this already, that more and more people came over. The first game what I played was around 3,000 people, and then the next game I think came around 6, 7, or 8,000 people, and then finally we developed more and more attention to the soccer crowd in Chicago. But there was really the reason that's what Willy. I think Willy spent maybe hours and talked to me a lot of times. That was not the reason was not Karl-Heinz Granitza come over and playing here we make a better team. Willy Roy paid to me attention and said, Karl, when you're coming over and with your performance, everybody will be better, like Arno or Pato or Jürgen Christen. We develop more players. We need better goalkeeping. We need better sweepers. We need better midfield players. We need a hustling team. We need the exciting team, and that's what he promised me. And then finally, after I think 2.5 months in Germany or 3 months in Germany, I was very, very tired. I remember this. I played probably 3 seasons without vacation, or 2.5 seasons without vacation, and then finally, my wife was the woman on my side for now 50 years marriage time. She mentioned to me that let's try Chicago, and that was the final point that I make the decision to go to Chicago. My wife finally she helped me. When I was a junior player, before I going in Germany to a second division team, I was there's nothing to do with money. Always by myself, I always like to playing in a good team. And then finally, my wife said, when I talked to Willy Roy and around Lee Stern. And she said, okay, let's try it. And that was the final point. I think after 3 months in Germany to playing, I told my team in Germany, Hertha BSC, I'm going back to Chicago.
All right, what's this? Royal Retros. All right, longtime fans of this show may remember a little site that we used to promote the heck out of called 503 Sports. Well, not only are they still around, they are now known as Royal Retros. RoyalRetros.com, the king of throwbacks. And like the name implies, the highest quality jerseys and hats and apparel and all kinds of stuff related to various teams and leagues and situations that we love to obsess about here on this show. And I'm talking about getting jerseys with your name and number on the back of them, customized to your liking, for the WHA or old NHL hockey teams that may not exist anymore. Perhaps it's a Federal League team from way back or a Negro League team. Maybe you're just enamored with the various football leagues of the past, like the Arena League or the All-American Football Conference or the original UFL, United Football League. Yes, you can get all of those teams in all kinds of colors, away jerseys, home jerseys. You want to put your name on them. You want to make sure you got the official patch on the side. All of those things and more at RoyalRetros.com. And I'm not kidding, friends. You go there, you want to find that Cleveland Barons jersey to wear and show. Hey, you're maybe a Colorado Avalanche fan and you want to represent the Quebec Nordiques from where they came in the arena to show your heritage and your love and knowledge of the history of that franchise. You can do that and more. And I'm talking across football and basketball and baseball and hockey and you name it. All kinds of great stuff for you to find and buy and purchase and wear proudly from Royal Retros. That's RoyalRetros.com. And of course, we have a promo code for you. We want to save you money from all these great things. And here's that code. It's SEATS, SEATS, promo code SEATS for all of your purchases at RoyalRetros.com. Check them out. You'll be glad you did. We love them. And our friend Destin Alameda there out in Portland, Oregon, we appreciate his and their sponsorship of this show. And now, back to our conversation. So that becomes 1979, essentially. And then, so you're a Mr. Chicago Sting. At that point, right, you are now increasingly surrounded by and with players of much higher quality. You mentioned a few of them, not all of them imports. I mean, some USA players, some Canadian players, like a Bruce Wilson on the defense and the Tony Chersky in the goal.
Yes.
That kind of stuff, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. We got not only Bruce Wilson, we got later on Tasso Katsoukis, we got Rudy Glenn, we got Charlie Fikes. I think the Native American players, and I tell everybody, they have a very, very high quality. And I know when they playing with European first division players together, they're getting better and better, and we find it very quickly out. And Charlie Fikes, Mark Symington, later on Rudy Glenn, was a big part for the two championships what we won with the Chicago Sting.
All right, so tell me about Go ahead.
Not only Pato Magedic, not only Karl-Heinz Granitza. I think the big part to this time, and I told us everybody, first of all, I'm very social with everybody. You know, when somebody from the young players, they don't have so much money, and when we go out drinking for a beer or whatever, I pay all the times for the younger players. Not many people know that, you know. I was very, 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 very social-wise to the American players, and I told him, you have to do this better. You have to do that. Please stop the ball and be more patient with the ball and things like this one. And they learn more and more and more and more. And the respectable part, that's why we have such a good team. The respectable part about like superstars, what you told in United States, like a guy like Karl-Heinz Granitza or Arno Steffenang, the American youngsters, they learn so fast, you know. That's a very, very big part about the success about the Chicago Sting.
Yeah, and you know, and the league was trying very, very hard to, well, I don't know, very hard. It was kind of almost token sometimes, right, where you had to have two or in some cases three, quote unquote, North American players on the field. And while that's, you know, ostensibly that's supposed to help develop the players in domestically, right? But the reality is, I mean, and the Cosmo is probably the greatest example against all of this, right? I mean, that said, Ricky Davis, you know, became a very strong player in the United States and stuff. And but it was hard because you had all these great imports coming in from all over the world. Some of the greatest players, you know, and lost, frankly, on some teams. Some of these Americans and Canadians were not really well tutored, like you're describing. So it sounds to me like the Sting were maybe, and your involvement with them, you guys were better at incorporating the North American player than some of the other teams were.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I told this, Willy, I think a player like Charlie Fikes, I think he to this time, you know, he can play in any league in the world, and with youngsters like him, you see this right away. They got not only ambitions, they have also talent, you know. And when you're playing with much better players in the league, what we have, I talked many times to Derek Spalding and Scotty Spalding. And when you see players like instance for Charlie Fikes, then you feel this, that's they getting better and better. And we develop, I think Willy Roy was not only a wonderful man, he was a really, really good coach, you know. He find it out. He can fit to us. You know, he got a very good balance. He's always got a good feeling about it. What is the balance? What is who is the leadership? Who is the respectful person on the team? And he built these players around him. And the players what you built around him was the most American players. And he was very, very good. I cannot tell even an inch bad things about the younger players in United States. You know, the willingness, the drive was always there, you know. But sometimes you have to work on the technique, you have to work on the finishes, you have to work on a certain kind of youngsters, you know. There was too much, the thinking about it, the already world class. But he was not already world class. You have to teach him certain kind of lessons. And in our organization in Chicago, Sting, you got always this respectful part, thoughts to the bigger players, from Rudy Glenn, Charlie Fikes, Max Simon, you name it. Craig Ryan used to be the coach from the United States national team, woman, and he learned a lot from us, I think.
Tell me about Chicago then at that time, your lifestyle there. I'm assuming you and your wife were enjoying being part of the Chicago environment, but also I'm curious as to fans paying attention. Obviously, also in the league, you were gaining quite the reputation very quickly as a star scorer and maybe almost the arch enemy of the other star scorer of the league, Giorgio Canaglia. Did you ever sense? So there's a lot there. Tell me about Chicago. Tell me about playing there, being the fans there. How much or how did you feel welcome there? And then as the league was paying more attention to you and the Sting, I got to think you felt that your profile was growing.
Absolutely. I think I grew up as man, first of all, in Chicago. Second of all, is the fans in Chicago. I mean, the soccer fans, they was unbelievable. You know, we're growing, I think, every game, we're growing more people. And when we have so many fanatics, I'm one of the few guys. I was from 365 days a year. I was probably 300 days on the way to be a member from this fan club, from this fan group. I was House of Blind a member, Heart Foundation, many hospitals and things like this one. And that was not in Germany to this time, you know. In United States, it is very and that is also a right way for every superstar, for every star, for every professional player who played in baseball, football, soccer, whatever. I mean, you have to pay attention to these people, you know, the social work. That's what I learned in United States is so important. And it still today, to this point with 73 years, is still a big part about me and my family. I never change. Believe me. That's why I was not only successful as player, I was successful as a human being. I remember many times. I'm writing a book, by the way. We can talking about my book later on, you know.
No, and I am looking forward to having you back to talk about the book so we can promote that as well and get more stories from you. But I digress.
Yes. And when I went with my family, you know, when my daughter was born, the second daughter was born, Kim, the first daughter was Nadine, and we went to the zoo, and then many people pay attention and know me from this point. I'm getting more fame. And when so many schools from school classes, you know, so many kids, they saw me there, and many of them, they playing soccer, they saw me there and came running to my family and to me, and like to have autograms and talk with me and things like this. How is it with the Chicago Sting and Elvis? I was always polite. I was always on time. I was always reachable for this person. And that's why my fame in Chicago belongs not only to the performance as soccer player, you know, belongs to me, in my opinion, to my social work. And my family never changed, and we never thought we're something special. We're always thinking about it, different, every people and be always nice and friendly and always polite and always reachable. I think that was the success about Karl-Heinz Granitza in Chicago, in my opinion.
And I think Chicago actually is a logical place for that kind of approach, right? Because it's Midwestern,
Yes.
right? It's not sort of the East Coast, West Coast, the superstar kind of thing. But arguably, we've heard this from a lot of former NASL players, right? A lot of it, especially the earlier players, right, where that community service, that involvement in their markets, that off the field activity was crucial, because they were, and I think you were too, really, maybe unwittingly. You're selling the game. You're relating the pro game to like people, the kids playing, and giving them people to look up to, and being involved in the community. You're part. It's not just a soccer player. You're part of the community, and a lot of people felt that was sort of. That was half the job, was to kind of be in the community and help grassroots, process, prove the game out, right?
Your explanation is perfect. We like to sell the sports over there. The soccer was not football, was not baseball, was not basketball, was not ice hockey. And we like to sell the sports, and everybody. What you're saying is perfect arranged from you, and you talk perfect about this situation. You have to go in the suburbs in Chicago. We have to go to the fanatics. You have to do everything to promote this sports. And when you can help, I remember when a guy sent me a letter to the Sting organization and said, my son is almost starving. He don't like to eat and things like this one, And then I went to the hospital not only once. I went there 10 times and 5 times. We saved this little boy, and later on he was a student. He was a perfect student. And he was a perfect soccer player. That's stories. Not only when you win 2-1, that is one story, but the story about to help one family. That's maybe the son survived. That's why you, Karl-Heinz Granitza, show up in the hospital not only 1, 2 times, 5 times, 10 times. I think that's nice. That's nice. That's my recognition. And I remember this. And you're right about the Middle West is more warmer to when you be in New York, the New Yorker people, they have a big mouth like here in Berlin, they're talking about a big mouth, talking in California, and everybody in California probably in German, they give a shit about, you're a soccer player, okay, next case, Yeah. But in the Middle West, you're right about it. Chicago is a special city. Chicago is not only Al Capone. Chicago is not only Michael Jordan or was Karl-Heinz Granitza to this time, or Dennis Savard in ice hockey. Chicago is people. Chicago is warm-hearted people, the nice, the remember you, the pleasant, and that's what I so like it after so many years Chicago life.
Okay, so I and as a transplant to Chicago myself, I grew up in New York, obviously. I can tell you that's true, right? There are people still today who remember the name Karl-Heinz Granitza, perhaps as the only name that they remember from these Sting years. And a lot of people still very lovingly and remember the Chicago Sting. But let me point you to this question, right? So you've just described how open and warm and community oriented you've been, but I think as a fan of the NASL back in the day, that seems odd to me, because you were not the most well-liked player on the field, and maybe because you were such a good and productive scorer.
But the unquestioned king of the free kick is Karl-Heinz Granitza, the Soccer Bowl-bound Chicago Sting. Granitza, with that powerful left foot, scored 9 goals on direct free kicks, including 2 against the Cosmos in the Meadowlands. Here he beats Hubert Birkenmeyer. And watch this great left-footed shot from 30 yards out against Minnesota. Perfectly placed in the upper right-hand corner. Again, in slow motion, Karl-Heinz Granitza takes his stance, follows through on the shot. A nice play by the goalkeeper, but no chance it's in the back of the net.
There were people who kind of didn't really like you maybe because you were so darn good on the field. And frankly, how about the Cosmos? I mean, there was that sort of very if there was a rival you guys had in these years, it was probably them. And I don't think there was any love lost between those two clubs. So square your two personalities perhaps with me, because it seems like on the field, like the fans really kind of love to hate you. Not the Chicago fans, but the other fans.
Also, certain kind of Chicago fans be hating me.
Carl, you're kind of the player in my mind that people don't really know in this city whether to love or hate. They boo you sometimes, they cheer for you other times. What about that whole situation? It's almost like a love-hate relationship with the fans here in Chicago sometimes. How do you react to it?
I was starting this 4.5 years or 5 years ago, and then I'm yelling a little bit to my younger guys. I like perfection in the game, and that's why maybe certain kind of people's getting upset. But this is always gone. You see this maybe tonight too. Everybody's exciting right now. They have really a guy, a superstar, a leader, a captain in the team, and everybody respect me, included the fans. And I like this. You have to go sometimes to certain kind of deeps or ups, and this is in Chicago the same situation. I go to many deeps with our team, with our fans, and I think right now we have a high situation with me.
You're completely right about it. I'm yelling to my teammates. I was yelling to all my teammates, not only to but especially to the young Americans. You know, yell to them extremely loud. You know, yell to them. You know, why you not pass me the ball a little bit more better to the right side and things like this one. But the reason for shouting was that I was a guy who hates to lose. I was a guy who hates that certain kind of people not making too many mistakes. And compared to our buddies like Cosmos New York, I remember we're playing maybe 2 or 3 games against Cosmos New York, and you still cannot find in the whole world today games like this one. You know, I remember in Chicago Wrigley Field when we're winning in overtime in the shootout 6-5. That was a fantastic game to watch.
Classic game on YouTube. You got to absolutely. I remember that vividly.
And I remember the game in New York City where I scored fantastic 2 free kick goals, you know.
But if there's one man I have to pick out as being perhaps the key to this game, it would have to be Karl-Heinz Granitza, because I think the Cosmos are a little afraid of him. The reason I say that is because he's burned them badly in previous games. In the 3-2 game, watch this goal. This was the final goal. Free kick over the wall. Nobody can touch it. Birkenmeyer, what can you do about that? Not very much, I'm afraid. He's lethal on those, and that is why the Cosmos have been saying aloud to the press, hey, all these free kicks that Karl-Heinz Granitza is getting is falling down. He doesn't deserve those free kicks because they don't want to give away free kicks outside the penalty area. And that's why I think they're going to be very, very careful, particularly in marking players like Marhetic. No free kicks just outside the area.
That was a 3-2 Chicago victory in New York. Now, the two teams had a rematch at midsummer. It took place at Wrigley Field in Chicago. Better than 30,000 were on hand, and it was as wild and woolly and crazy a game as we have seen in the North American Soccer League. It wound up 6-5 in the shootout. Here's the first goal. Ingo Peter, that made it 1-0 Chicago, 9th minute. 25th minute, Dave Husson, 2-0 Chicago. 28th minute, Giorgio Canaglia, 2-1 Chicago, still has the lead. Romero for New York. That tied it up 2-2. Just before halftime, Charlie Ficus gives Chicago a 3-2 lead. Second half, Arno Steffenhagen. It's 4-2 Chicago. 70th minute, Giorgio Canaglia, 4-3 Chicago. 75th minute, Romero to tie at 4-4. Then Ingo Peter makes it 5-4 Chicago, and with 40 seconds left, Ivan Buljan ties it up 5-5. The crowd went crazy, and Chicago wound up winning it by a count of 6-5.
So many New Yorkers, when I'm in New York, And I remember the one day I flew with my wife over Las Vegas, and we went in Las Vegas for one day, and we're talking about the game Cosmos New York, and I told they're still talking about this game. You know, that was probably one of the most, and there was really everybody thinking about it. You're playing world class only in Spain or in Germany or Italy. I think that was world class. That was world class game.
Did you feel that you had a rivalry with Giorgio Canaglia, given that you were both prolific scorers coming from Europe? And because I remember Giorgio being sort of loved and hated simultaneously in New York as well, right? There's the kind of and he relished, he loved being the straw that stirred the drink, so to speak. Now, New York was its own set of issues, right? There's so many players and so many stars, and there's a whole bunch of, I mean, it's a whole nother dynamic beyond what you guys were doing at the Sting. But that said, there's always you're kind of a lightning rod, right? When you're such a good player and you're the engine that drives the team.
You're right about it. I mean, you got certain like Giorgio Canaglia, when we played a tournament, I remember in Vancouver, Canada, and I remember when he asked me, I said, I told him, I said, certain kind of people, they don't like me, that's why I yell too much to my teammates. I said, yes, Giorgio Canaglia told me, Karl, don't worry about it, you know. I cannot understand, he told me, that you're so kind, and let all the under players around you, the midfield players or defensive players like Derek Spollen, let score on penalty kicks, you know. And he told me, and I said, why are you not taking all the penalty kicks? You're scoring much more goals, you know. He told me this one. He said, be more in a way jealous, even they hate you in a way, you know. But my attention was when somebody is feeling good, like Derek Spalding in one important game, he scored a wonderful penalty kick and a very important penalty kick, then I was very, very satisfied. You know, I like to see the approach about the team winning. Winning is everything else. And when somebody dislikes me, even today, they don't know me as person. You know, after the game, you can ask, I think, any American players, any, maybe a few, they didn't make it so much with our team, but the most of the American players, they make a plus about the Chicago Sting. They say, I heard it from the most of them. I learned so much from European players like Karl-Heinz Granitza or Arno Steffenhagen, Jürgen Christensen, or this outstanding Pato Margedic, or whatever, you know, or Paul Hahn as defensive player who was the best player in the final game in Toronto against New York. He was the best man on the field, and things like this one, or Franz Mathieu, or whatever, you know.
So you didn't mind having a target on your back, so to speak, when you went to other league venues and stuff. You didn't. I mean, you were obviously scoring. I mean, you and Giorgio were kind of like sort of neck and neck for a lot of times. It was, and that's, I think maybe that's why those Cosmos Sting games were so highly charged and so exciting and arguably rivalry like, because you had sort of the two best scorers in the league by far dueling it out. And you know, that I guess I would ask the question then, being such a prolific scorer, right, and being somebody so important as a cog to a team like that, you have to kind of have to have a chip on your shoulder, right, a little bit, right, because you gotta have a little bit of attitude in order to kind of be such a ferocious scorer and carry the team like that. No, and it's kind of a dynamic that strikers and forwards have to have, I think, right?
Tim, this is perfect what you mentioned right now. You know, you have to have really a big thing on your shoulder. You know, I know that Lee Stern was very, very good to me and to my family, and the whole Stern family was good to me. the Chicago fans were good to me, and Willy Roy was very, very good to me. Also, you have to give them a certain kind of professional things back, not only in goal scoring, in performance, and go out in the community and sell the sport and make a person or the family sternly a very, very big part about the sports community in Chicago. And that's what we did. That's what I did. That was my attention to this one. You have to give them certain kind of things back and give the community, they so nice to you, and the fans, they so wonderful to you. Give them certain kind of things back, especially winning and win a championship after 23 years for Chicago. That was my goal.
Tell me also about 1981, playing in two different home settings between Comiskey Park and Wrigley Field. I got to think there were times when, so for our audience, right, you have to remember that the club played basically an equal amount of games in each facility because they were now not playing at Soldier Field anymore. Was there ever a time, okay, so were there any comical moments when maybe you thought or others thought that maybe they went to the wrong field or something? And did you have preferences as to which one of those places that you either liked or didn't like, and maybe why?
My personal preferences was obviously the Wrigley Field, even in the second stadium where we played also outstanding soccer, no problem. But the love and the feel, when 20, 25, 30,000 people watching the game in Wrigley Field, it is a fantastic atmosphere, And that's why, in my opinion, I came from Berlin, where we played 1.5 years in front of almost 90,000 people, and the crowd was cheering. And when we played against Cologne, Hertha BSC against Cologne, and in this game against New York, and especially Wrigley Field, I'm enjoyed it. For me personally, maybe all the other guys, they have a different mind, but for me personally was it that we played in Wrigley Field much, much better, much more freer, much more exciting. And you're right about it. The field was a little bit closer and a little bit smaller, I think.
Did you or others ever maybe go to the wrong park sometimes, thinking that it was the other one, maybe because of the changes in schedule?
Yeah. Not only once, at least 5 or 6 times. No. When I drove with my old Ford Bronco, I went on the way to Wrigley Field, and then I remember I was so concentrated on the game and thinking about it. Let's win the game today. And then obviously there was not a game in Wrigley Field. But there was more times happening with my person. I think 5 or 6 times I have to change around Wrigley Field and then drove to the south side in Chicago.
Tell me about Soccer Bowl 81. Quite the event. I remember very vividly. There were plenty of Cosmos fans that made the trip to Toronto, but I was amazed at just how many Chicago Sting fans had made the trip, and it was clear after the victory just how many of them there were, because it was very difficult to get out of the stadium that day. But
ABC Sports presents Soccer Bowl 81. It's the New York Cosmos versus the Chicago Sting from Exhibition Stadium in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. This ABC Sports exclusive is brought to you by Light Beer. Everything you always wanted in a beer and less.
Any recollections of that game in particular, either leading up to it, the surface of that field, which, in retrospect was probably very hard and had seams in it and stuff.
The service, Tim, was not. There was really the service was in terrible shape. First of all, that was not a good choice. Maybe the president from the NASL, he did make maybe a mistake. He didn't talk before maybe to the mayor from Toronto that we have maybe a new turf field or a grass field, something like this, was in not good shape. I remember when we beat San Diego in a shootout in the quarterfinal before. Then that was for me personally, the game was for me very, very tight, and I think the whole game included overtime was maybe of both sides, maybe two really good chances to score a goal. We came once close in Georgia with this bicycle kick, a fantastic bicycle kick from Georgia, almost win the game for Cosmos. And there was very, very tight, very, very explosive, and it was. We know it will be a close game, like in Wrigley Field before, or in New York when we beat Cosmos twice. But the most important is we believe in ourselves. You know, even when we lose in the shootout, Bogicevic's goal, 1-0 came behind it, and then I scored probably my most important goal ever for the Chicago Sting when I tied up the game in the shootout.
Yeah, and you look at some of the footage of that game. Yeah, I mean, you could see that the turf is very hard. The ball bounces and stuff, but it was still very exciting. It had to be though very frustrating for people like both you and Giorgio Canaglia to not have, I don't know, more scoring chances, but for neither side to have any goals. I mean, I think a lot of people were surprised that was what happened during the course of most of the game.
Yeah, we came the teams neutralizing themselves, especially in midfield. There was a lot of running, a lot of fighting, a lot of pressure in midfield, and the defense of both sides played really outstanding. New York with this outstanding Giorgio Canaglia, you have to watch him not only 90 minutes, you have to watch him all the times, 120 minutes. He's so good. He was so good. He can score in any kind of position. He can score a goal, and then our defense making an outstanding job, and New York the same. And that's why there was very okay after the game and after this came to a shootout. The game was 0-0, and we didn't score a goal. Our both wings and from New York, also the defense of both sides in this game was really, really outstanding, including the goalkeepers Hubert Birkemeyer and Dieter Ferner.
What was the emotion when Bob Yarushi was unsuccessful in his last shootout shot for the Cosmos? What was your emotion? What was the team's emotion? And tell me too about sort of the fans there, and then coming back home to Chicago, which was just absolutely amazing.
Yes, that was absolutely amazing on the airport in Chicago. I mean, the airport was closed. I mean, we are expecting, of course, some fans there, but not this kind of fans. That's almost closing the airport. You know, you cannot go 2 meters. That was impossible. You know, and all the fans from the thing, and my loving fans, the Italian fans. They like me so much. I mean, there was for them what is a win, and also for Chicago after so many years to win the first championship, and especially the Americans and the European together, the fans, the enjoying this victory over Cosmos New York. That was something really outstanding. Airport, the fan support in Toronto, and there was for my life. I'm writing a book right now, and there was something outstanding, special, wonderful, and I don't know how many times I could not believe after Rudy Glenn in the shootout scored a 2-1. We was pretty lucky. That's the ball is bouncing in the net. And after this one, I said to myself, I think we win it now. I think Dieter Ferner will catch Iarushi and save us the 2-1 victory.
Were you surprised at the parade and just the outpour, the basically the celebration of it? Clearly, Chicago had not had a sports champion in a long time. I think a lot of that was pent up energy, and the Sting were convenient. But it's also had to be a real crowning achievement for you and for Lee Stern and the whole organization, given where it was and how tenuous it was just a few years prior to that, right? I mean,
yes,
kind of parade
you're right about it.
Yeah, that kind of parade is for true American sports champions, and you guys got one.
Yes, there was. I never expect. I mean, a crowd in the streets from Chicago. With this kind of capacity, you're thinking about, okay, we developed soccer in United States, we developed soccer in Chicago. Lee Stern almost sold the club. Willy Roy took over as a coach and built with much less money from the salary point here, a championship team, and Willy and Lee Stern stick to this one, and then we came to Chicago, and then finally you said, "Are you driving with the cars?" I saw yesterday. Yesterday was my 50 years marriage time with my wife.
Congratulations! Happy anniversary to you.
Thank you very much. And then we went to the city with yesterday to the city. And before I went to the city, I watched one more time the celebration driving on the picture, in Chicago. And still, I get goosebumps after I watched it yesterday. What kind of things we had done in 1981? Of course, 2 years later, 84, that's we won the 2 championships, and that was a wonderful feeling.
That's amazing that all these years ago that you can look back on that one as a highlight moment. And that speaks volumes. So you did bring up 1984. So let's talk about that period of time from that pinnacle, that championship, to 1984, when the league basically, I mean, you won in 1984 the last ever. I don't think everybody sort of knew that it was going to be the last ever, but I think some kind of did. Can you kind of remember sort of, so I would argue that this is me speaking now, right? As I think in some respects that the Soccer Bowl 1981 championship was almost sort of the defining beginning of the end of the NASL, not because of your championship and not because the mighty Cosmos had lost, but it was just it just seems like the acceleration of the decline of the league really started happening kind of really right after that. And I'm wondering, as a player, as an employee of a team, when did you know that the league was in trouble, and what did you think about your future and all that kind of stuff? I mean, or were you just oblivious and you just wanted to keep playing and getting paid?
After I heard this, I was devastated. After I heard this, and in my opinion was that, I mean, Cosmos New York paid outstanding money to all the players. What he came from Europe. I mean, the Cosmos have an absolute world-class team for many years in New York. What certain kind of people or world-class people now doing, they going to Saudi Arabia and playing in this league. They came to United States and playing this league. So you don't have the steadiness, thoughts to Warner Communication Brothers. I think they start to have trouble to finance again years around Cosmos New York. They paying outstanding salaries for these world-class players, and then obviously somebody from the Warner Communication Brothers is saying that's it, now we cannot do it anymore. Or when you have guys normally like Lama Hunt, he was in the league before too, NASL, and Lama Hunt building right now the MLS with Philipp Anschütz, When you have guys like Philipp Anschütz, Lama Hunt, in the beginning of the 80s, the league NASL, what was for me a wonderful league, without any kind of question. When I'm thinking about in Minnesota, we have sometimes 30, 40, 50,000 people, I remember. And that's why the league, from the attendance, from the interest they had, couldn't not fold. When the leading team, Cosmos New York, the president, or all the people around Warner Communication Brothers said, no, that's it. We're going now out from the league. And then all the under owners, I could not understand this up to date, 2025, that they not stick their heads together and said, okay, we're not going maybe in a new season with 32 teams or 26 teams or 24 teams. We're going in the league. Maybe we make the teams strong. We make the teams and the cities stronger, and building new stadiums, especially soccer stadium. And probably then, with this kind of thinking, the NASL was still around, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think certainly Cosmos spending didn't help the matters, and everybody was trying to keep up with them. I think, frankly, it's also, the economy in the United States in the early 80s was in pretty rough shape, a lot of inflation and all that kind of stuff. There are a lot of other sort of factors sort of buffeting as well. I do want to bring up another factor that I think had some influence on the demise of the league, and it's kind of not direct, but tell me about the indoor game for you, and your like or dislike for it. You certainly adjusted quite well for it, but tell me about your adventures indoor. Obviously, the Sting were very active in the indoor game, and the league obviously went back and forth in terms of its interest. But with the MISL coming out of nowhere, the league, NASL, had to do something about the indoor game, and you were part of that. Did you enjoy indoors? What was the differences of it? Did you not like it?
I mean, I'm enjoying the indoor game very much. So that's why when we played in the Chicago Stadium, there the most of the time we have a sellout crowd, and there was what an experience was it, indoor. And I'm thinking about all the times. on the owners and on people. We spend their money, or we paying their paychecks for the league. We paying their paychecks for the players and for the teams. And when you're thinking about it, you have to play indoor and outdoor. That was quite experience life. Obviously later on the indoor game is folding, but now regroup especially auch in Europe. Obviously, the indoor game is coming back, and very, very, very exciting. When I see in my home city here, Berlin, I mean, we playing indoor again. Very exciting indoor game, and the attendance getting better and better. Not in a really, really strong league, but we're still starting with the indoor league.
So, but you adjusted pretty quickly and pretty well, right? Your scoring skills were still very good there. That not every player outdoors made that adjustment that easily. Certainly, the Cosmos didn't very well.
No, I mean, when you're thinking about, I remember a game against the Cosmos, but we're losing by 5 or 6 goals in Madison Square Garden. That was quite an experience, and I personally, even George, you can tell you, the coach Willy Roy and all the other coaches said, "Oh, the guy like the stiff guy like Giorgio Canalla cannot play in indoor, but he scored indoor the goals, and Karl-Heinz Granitza cannot play indoor, but I score indoor and outdoor the goals." I mean, obviously, when you're a good soccer player and you've got a nose for goals, and when you got a fantastic shooting technique, then you can play both of them, and that's why there was a helping part. But I thought, that's why I came from Europe, that will be not lasting long, the indoor league, in my opinion. Before I discussed it many times with European people, they saying, watch out, Karl. One day the indoor league NASL, the indoor league MASL will be gone, and you were right about it.
So you obviously stayed with the Sting until it went out of business, and then you even stuck around in Chicago as well to play indoors for what was then a minor league team to the MISL, the Chicago Power, I guess it was. So when the team kind of and the league went away, what was your thinking? Like, where were you like, okay, I still have some years in me and I still want to play. Do I maybe want to move back to Europe? Or like, why stay in Chicago and why play indoors? I'm curious, what were you thinking when they collapsed, right? What were you thinking about doing?
You're right. You're right. For me, it was devastating. That's the first part. And then you think, you're playing only now indoor and things like this one. And I thought to myself, I mean, for my thinking, maybe I got maybe one good year left or two good years left in the 30s. I was in the 30s, and I thought to myself, the better for the Granitza family is go back to Europe. That was my first thinking, And then we played the indoor, and then finally the NASL, they folded also indoor-wise, and then we played in the MISL, and with new teams and a new regroup, probably the league, and that is always sometimes very, 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 very difficult to building a new exciting league, and that's why. Probably after Cosmos New York folded after '84, then that was soccer maybe in the next 5 or 6 years or whatever. That was it. No more really good, exciting world-class soccer in the United States.
Yeah, look, as a fan of soccer back then, right? And we've talked about this a lot on our show. It almost felt like an abandonment, right? All this great stuff, and again, me as a Cosmos fan, probably spoiled rotten, right? With all thinking that was sort of like it just all of a sudden it felt like it all went away, it all vanished. And as an American soccer fan, I mean, that period of time from the mid 1980s until the World Cup came along in 1994, right, was a very dark and uncertain time about the sport, right? It almost felt like the sport had kind of failed again professionally.
Yes.
And what to do with that, right? You move on, you go to other things. It was a dark time.
Yeah,
you were still here though, right?
Yeah, I was. There was a mistake of mine, and I love this sport, soccer, so much. Still, I'm going every week to my team, here to my ex-team, Hertha BSC Berlin. But that was, for me, there was not, something was missing, and that's why I was very, very close, and maybe I'm making a mistake. I was not back to Europe, And I stayed in Chicago, and the quality was down. All the world-class player was gone. Franz Beckenbauer, Pele was retired. Johan Cruyff was back in Europe, and all the other world-class players around New York and in the league. He went back to Europe and playing the last days in their professional life. The Europe League, and that was maybe a mistake of mine too. That I'm not went back to the German Bundesliga or to somebody else in Europe, to some else in the league.
All right. Well, let's. I just want a couple of last questions because you've been very generous with your time, and this is going to be a really great episode.
No problem.
I can't wait to get it out
problem,
there.
Tim.
So tell me then what happened sort of after that period of time. How do you move on then from a playing career into life, right? Because as many professional players,
that was
right, they always
very
have a tough
difficult.
time. Yeah.
I was the most exciting player on the team with my teammates, of course. I was the goal scorer, the goal scorer who scored every year between 20 goals and between 15 and 20 assists. Once in the 81 season, I got 26 assists and I think over 20 goals, 20 or 21 goals. Yeah? I was not only a goal scorer like Giorgio Chinaglia and a finisher. I was also a play assist giver. And then finally, the game is over, the league is over. What you do then, you know? And I was not. I remember this. When the New York players was paid up to the 20th man, they have a better salary than Karl-Heinz Granitza. You know, there was a player I remember in New York. He was not even in the lineup. What he told me, and he was on 20th place, and I was. He got the same salary like me. You know.
Wow, that's wow.
That's really true stories. I mean, obviously, what Willy Roy done with the Chicago Sting organization with this kind of salary, what we got a good salary, no question about it. Compared to New York or a certain kind of California clubs, or so, we was not the highest paid organization in the league, in the NASL, and then you don't have so much money left. What you do in your life, you know, and then you make after the professional soccer life, you make them. In my opinion, in my case, I'm making mistakes, big mistakes, you know.
Yeah, it's hard, right? I think, and this is not just unique to professional soccer players, right? This is the professional sports player, somebody who, you know, who's basically their entire first third of their life, right, is devoted to being the best at their, you know, at their craft, at their sport. And then when it kind of goes all away, and I think it's actually doubly challenging. It's not like you were retiring from the Bundesliga, which was going to go on very well. Thank you very much. This was the league and all the support mechanisms and the interest in this, you know, was gone in the United States. Really, that was gone too immediately. So not only were you a player nearing the twilight of his career, but also the support mechanisms were gone too. That's got to be a big blow to the ego and to the finances and all of that kind of stuff. Where did
the financial Tim, and to the quality life with your family, you know. And there was not today to this time a player like Shaqiri or Sebastian Schweinsteiger in Chicago, Joachim Friedrich, or somebody from the Stasi coming over. I mean, they're playing not like what we have a little bit $100,000 a season. They're paying for $3, $4, $5, $6 million, you know. And can you believe? I mean, like Giorgio Chinaglia, he played season after season, unbelievable, outstanding, and a goal scorer today like Giorgio Chinaglia. Or what do you think is the same like Ronaldo or whatever? You know how much he's making in Saudi Arabia. You know, he's making $200 million a season. You know, and that is a big difference. And I remember from my ex players from Germany or from Holland. You know, everybody likes to hustling in a different kind of profession. Then, you know, not more. You went in certain kind of different business, and some of them, like me, the same like Karl-Heinz Granitza, we got a hard time after the soccer life, you know, very hard.
Yeah, I mean, did you consider coaching and that kind of stuff, or did you feel like you wanted to move on to something else and figure out something else outside of soccer and move on with life that way?
I did my coaching license. You're right. I did my coaching license. Then later on in in life. And my wife said, stick with soccer, stick with soccer, stick with soccer. And she was right about it, you know, and I'm making certain kind of the streets, right to the right and to the left side in the restaurant business and in the bar business. And that was not a good decision for me, you know.
Yeah, and I certainly that's life, right? Life is not unique. It happens to everybody, regardless. All right, so let me gear shift into our last set of questions here. I'm really curious. So you're bringing up sort of the current state of the sport. I gotta think that players of your generation who were standouts and stars have to look back and see all this money now that is just, you know, I mean, it's always been about money, but at this level now, it just seems so gigantically different. Do you feel a little jealous that these guys are making this kind of money, or do you feel kind of like proud or happy that they're able to make that kind of living?
No, Tim, we're not really in my age or whatever, or so before. I learned this in United States. You know, when a man is successful in sports or business, he has to be something special. This man or this woman or whatever, you know. And when right now you have a center forward who scored a season 20 or 25 goals, or like Ronaldo, I mean, he deserves it. And the same like Giorgio Chinaglia and all the other superstars in United States. We're not jealous. We're not this kind of jealous, you know. I'm not a jealous man in general. You know, when somebody from my neighbors or whatever drive a better car, then he deserves it. I say good luck with the car, good luck with your life and things like this one. But jealousy, you know, 30, 40 years later, you know, it makes you cuckoo when you're jealous, and when you're thinking about it. Oh, when I play today, I'm making this kind of money. You're making in one season. You're making enough money in one season, like or Granitza or the other players in the league. You're making so much money that you never be lost in your life. You know, you're fed up with you can save the money, you can do whatever you like to do, and to our time, you know, our generation, that was not to this point ready. Our jealousy, we don't know about jealousy, you know. The young players today, some of them they deserve that. Some of them, the outstanding world-class player, they deserve it. And I wish them all the best and all the good luck in the world. And hopefully they have a nice family and raise their children, you know, and especially do something for the social life, especially in United States. You know what I did in 300, almost in 300 days a year. That I went to the race up to, I remember 81 with the AIDS Society. I was a member there. I was a member to the Heart Association. I don't know how many visits I did to hospitals and everything else. And the young players today, you have to do this much more. This is my only question. Why the managers from the club sending not enough the young players or the good players to the hospitals and things like this one? Much more. You have to do social work. That is my opinion.
So as you look at the United States game, as you still have, you know, interest in, say, the Chicago Fire, which I've tried to become a fan of over the years. I was one of the first season ticket holders, and it's been challenging, let's put it that way, for a number of different reasons to be a fan. When you come back to the States to visit and all that kind of stuff, and players maybe that you still stay in touch with, Chicago Sting and the NASL, where does that those memories and that history live, right? And are you how many people remember this stuff, and how important your role and your play and the league and all that stuff and the Sting were back in the day, because I think a lot of times Major League Soccer kind of just doesn't want to hear about the past or the NASL or the failure of the sport.
Yes.
Stuff.
That's correct. The disrespect was what the MLS or a certain kind of managers or a certain kind of president from the MLS and also the second league, you know. We have not this mutual respect, but our generation got, you know. I watch him all the times, you know, the highlights from the Chicago Fire, no question about it, you know. And somebody like Colorado Rapids, that's why I know the president. He remember me from the past and things like this one, you know. That's why I follow teams like Colorado and things. Or the German guy who is right now, Lutz Van Stiel, he's right now in St. Louis, who is doing a good job over there. And I follow them all the time. We have this mutual respect compared to the MLS guys. Yeah, you're talking about later in the past or whatever, you know, and it's really a shame that certain kind of managers or certain kind of coaches, you know, when they're thinking about, we were not listening to the NASL in the past. I mean, you see a player in the MLS like Johan Cruyff, not me. I don't see a player like Johan Cruyff. You see a player like Franz Beckenbauer? No. You see a player like in a way which is shooting techniques like Karl-Heinz Granitza in the MLS. I don't think I don't see somebody. Really not. You know?
Well, I mean, a Messi, right? But arguably, somebody like a Messi is more of a, I don't want to say a.
Messi. No, sorry. Messi is Messi can play in any league, even when he's in the 40s, like Pele played. You know?
Yeah, I get it. My point is that this league still has a little bit of the this retirement plan approach, right? I mean, no disrespect to Messi, he's still very good at what he does, but you know, bringing in a Messi, bringing in a Jordi Alba, or you know, it's a lot of these. It's still looked upon, I think, in certain circles as I'll go to MLS to play my last couple of years, and that doesn't, you know, there's a devil's bargain there, right? Because it's like, okay, great, we get the world's most famous player for a couple of years, and then he goes away. Beckham, same thing a few years back, right? I mean, it's this reliance on an international superstar on the decline coming to this country to play, and that doesn't help develop the American player and the entire all we just talked about as much. No,
that's Tim, you're absolutely 100,000% right. You know, when I told I'm in writing many times with the owner from the and he's a very nice fella, Joe Mansueto. You know, but I told him already 5 or 6 times. I told him 10 times. You know, but he let his group develop. You know, the academy director or the scouting or whatever. And I wrote him, I said, go all over the world and try to find a young world-class player and pay him in the right way. And you're right about it. When you have a world-class player in a younger age, you learn so much from him. You know, the whole team, Inter Miami, you know, surprisingly, he won last year not a championship with Messi, probably this year. But when I'm thinking about it, you know, how the players getting better around Messi, that is unbelievable. You know, that's can you imagine? He was in Chicago. He didn't even play. Our 60,000 people like to see him, you know, before. Or when he go to Colorado, or when you go to maybe now to San Diego, the new team, or to St. Louis, there's always a sellout crowd. I mean, it's the reason for it, you know, the need, what the really good soccer people and the soccer guys and the soccer mamas and the soccer papas, we learn so much from soccer in the last 10, 15, 20 years that they can read a game and they can judge that this is a good player or that this is not a good player. And that's why they have to invest revolution-wise, scouting, 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 scouting. 100,000%.
Right, because the players are there. They just need to be found and developed and frankly brought into,
Absolutely.
Well, all right.
Absolutely.
All right. So here's my last question, and then I'm going to let you promote the idea of your. I'm going to hear more about your book and all that stuff that you're putting together. So what about the international game? FIFA, 48 teams, for goodness sakes, in the World Cup. Is it too much now? Is it too much money? Is it too much international? It feels to me like a lot of sports around the world, not just soccer. It just feels like it's getting to be a little too much, perhaps, and maybe it's too much of a good thing. I mean, the international calendar is so crowded. Players are, how many tournaments are there and all that kind of stuff. From my perspective, right, and this is, not nearly as informed as yours, but from my perspective, it feels like I don't think the world really needs 48 teams in a World Cup.
You're right.
It seems to devalue and feels like a real chase for, it's a money grab more than anything else. And I'm not sure that the tournament's going to be that great in those early rounds, and maybe people and players are going to suffer, I think, because of it. That's my opinion.
Absolutely. And don't forget the European and also in South America is this, but in Europe, of course, more. You have to play in England, you have to playing maybe 60, 70 games. I mean, 70 games. And then plus the international, you play then in your national team, and then there are 48 teams on the World Cup. You have to playing more games. I mean, some of them, the outstanding world-class players, they will be tired. They will be after the season when you're playing 60 to 70 games, they really will be tired, And that's you have to have the feeling, the president from the FIFA, you have to have a feeling. You cannot push and say we're making more money. No, we're making a little bit more money, good for the FIFA, more money for the FIFA, or whatever. You're thinking about the players, some of them, nobody can tell me that you can play 70 games in every game on the world-class level. Nobody can tell me this one. You have some bad games, you have some bad games, you have a super game, you have the 5 outstanding games, something like this. But nobody can tell me when you play 60, 70 games, every game is a world-class game. No way.
Especially when you throw in travel, right? Which I got to think that was an adjustment for you when you played right here in the United States. The travel from coast to coast was probably something completely foreign to you.
Yes, I mean, when you're flying them 5 hours and when you're staying there, then it's just okay. But when you're playing on Saturday or Sunday in California or in Vancouver, and then 2 days later or on Wednesday you're playing in New York City, and flying all over and traveling 100,000 of miles and miles and miles. And when you have done more games, even also done in the league, you have to keep the league exciting. You have to keep the freshness about good players. You have to keep them. You have to keep them in good shape. And that's why the too many games of European Championship and not a European Championship and not a European Championship. That is sometimes not good for the players. Really not.
Look, this is partially why we look to players like you as being true pioneers of the sport, certainly here in the United States. I mean, people forget just how ridiculous the length of the season of the NASL was. It was so compressed into the summer. You were playing games, to your point, the travel, 2 days rest between a West Coast and an East Coast game. The Transatlantic Challenge Cup, which was sort of a thing in the middle of all of that, and the surfaces and the all that kind of stuff, the wobbly franchises out there. It was just the fact that you and others like you were so good, so dominant, and so well remembered for your exploits. there is pioneer status there. And when we met, you won't remember, of course, when we met at the National Soccer Hall of Fame, we've got one picture, right?
Yes.
And got that award, right?
Yes.
And we're inducted, right? I mean, with all due respect, I think there should be a whole bunch more from that era that should be in there, because as we've talked about with lots of players, right? Kyle Rote Jr., others, you guys are real pioneers. The community service stuff, you're selling the game. It's against all the odds, against American sports thinking. And for a white hot moment there, a couple, it was clearly an amazing time in sports. And you know that in Chicago in 1981. I know that as a Cosmos fan in the 70s. And unfortunately, it all went away, but it should still be remembered and understood as being part of why we have 30 years of MLS since then, and all this kind of stuff, right? I hope you and your fellow players from that time recognize that you were so important and consequential for, I think, frankly, the history of where we are now and the stuff that we've got today in soccer in the United States, because there was a time where we weren't so sure we were going to have it anymore.
You're right, Tim. And the mutual respect from the new generation, this generation, to the old generation, like our generation, that has to be much better and much more demut. I don't know the English word. You have to be more humble thoughts to the players, what they used to be playing in the NASL, and you're right about it. When you're a developer about the sport, and I mentioned when I said it to one coach, one soccer coach, one woman soccer coach in Germany, I said I playing in United States, and in the future, the team from United States will be unbeatable. They will win championship and World Cups, another championship and another World Cup. And I was obviously after my retirement, I see this. The development from the woman part in United States was fantastic. Was absolutely fantastic. And that is the woman soccer. And now we have soccer in United States, and they find the solution about it. I think each and every game is in United States. We have around 20,000 people, 25,000 people, and things like this one. It is just wonderful, and I'm enjoying it. The MLS, but also I'm enjoyed my old memories about the NASL, and that's why it's very, very interesting sometimes, when you say, oh, this right wing, can he play from the NASL, can he play today? Of course he can play today. It's a different kind of training, different kind of fitness, or whatever. World-class player can play in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s, and in the year 2025. No question about it.
All right, mighty thanks to the great Karl-Heinz Granitza. A fantastic conversation. I enjoyed it thoroughly. And his biography is coming out soon. I want to thank Stefan Hermans for connecting us back to Karl-Heinz. And Stefan is the man tasked with putting this biography together. It is likely to come out later this year. We will keep you updated as to when that comes out. I'm sure here in the Chicago area, a lot of people will be very eager to get their hands on a copy of this book, and maybe we can convince Karl-Heinz and Stefan to perhaps make the journey to Chicago to help sell a couple of extra books. And God forbid, maybe we'll actually have a conversation in person. We can do another podcast episode. But hey, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But again, once again, my thanks to both Karl-Heinz and to Stefan for this great conversation. More great discussions, episodes, memories are part of this little show process here. And the locus for all of the information about it, we store all the episodes there as well. It's goodseatsstillavailable.com. Pretty easy to remember, and it's where we post all of our episodes. You should, of course, be subscribing or following us in your favorite podcast feed, player, system, mechanism, whatever. But for whatever reasons, if you can't, or you just want to search up a particular episode, or think maybe we talked about a particular topic that might be of interest to you, there's a big fat search bar there on that website. Again, goodseatsstillavailable.com. You can also find links to our great sponsors like royalretros.com and oldschoolshirts.com and 417helmets.com, and our friends at Yinzelvania, sportshistorycollectibles.com, and merch that you can purchase featuring our logo or logos of all kinds of other teams from TeePublic. All of those, you just go to the merch page there on our website. Again, goodseatsstillavailable.com. Follow us on the socials, why don't you? We are most active on Blue Sky. You'll find us there at goodseatsstillavailable.com. And on the X Twitter thing, for as long as we can tolerate it, which may not be too much longer, frankly. But there we are at Good Seats Still. You can also follow us on other social feeds where we're more lightly active, but certainly we promote each week's episodes on those places in addition. And the handles for all of those, including YouTube, by the way, where we publish the audio version of the show. It's the only audio version of this show. The tag there is Good Seats Still Available for all of those. If you'd like to send us some email, of course you can do so. We're at hello@goodseatsstillavailable.com. Our thanks, of course, as always, to the audio excellence of Mr. Jerry Payne. Thank you, sir. And appreciate everybody listening this week. And in all the weeks ahead, more great stuff to come. Thanks for listening. Take care of yourselves.